The late afternoon sun slanted through the blinds of Mr. Brooks's notary office, casting golden bars across the polished oak desk. Claire and Ryan sat across from me, their smiles confident, certain they were about to secure the deed to Dalton Dairy Farm, my life's work, the land I had poured my soul into for 35 years. But when Mr. Brooks slid the stamped papers across the desk, Claire's face drained of color. The documents bore my signature. Yes, but the new owner listed wasn't her, nor her husband. Instead, the farm had been legally transferred to the Wisconsin Harvest Foundation, a nonprofit that provided food and shelter for struggling families. The silence in that office was suffocating. Ryan shifted, his confidence cracking. Claire's lips trembled as she finally whispered, her voice breaking, "Dad, you planned this?" I looked directly into her eyes I once thought held nothing but love and promise, and answered with the calm certainty of a man who had nothing left to lose, yet everything to protect. Yes. I've always been a simple man, Samuel Dalton, son of a dairy farmer, grandson of a dairy farmer. The rich soil of Wisconsin runs through my veins as surely as blood. For 59 years, I've known little beyond the rhythm of seasons, the weight of responsibility, and the quiet pride of honest work. The first light of dawn would find me in the barn every day, my calloused hands moving with practiced efficiency among the Holstein cows that were as familiar to me as family. Each had a name, a personality. Old Bessie with her gentle eyes. Stubborn. Marigold who'd kick the milk pail if you didn't speak to her first. They were my constant companions after Elaine, my wife, passed when our daughter Claire was just 12. "You're up early again, Dad," Claire said one morning, finding me in the kitchen after chores, nursing a cup of coffee as the sun finally crested the eastern fields. She was 16 then, her mother's eyes and my stubborn chin, hair tied back in a practical ponytail. "Early bird gets the worm," I replied with my usual smile. It was our ritual, this exchange. She rolled her eyes but smiled back. "And the early farmer gets... what exactly? More cow manure? Gets to see the world wake up." I pushed a plate of eggs toward her. "Gets to make sure his daughter can go to college someday." The light in her eyes then, that's what kept me going through the hardest times. Through drought years when the corn withered in the fields. Through winter blizzards when I'd trudge through snowdrifts higher than my waist to check on the herd. Through nights when my back screamed in protest and my hands were so chapped they cracked and bled. Every sacrifice was for her. Claire was my world after Elaine died. I'd promised my wife I'd give our daughter everything we dreamed of together. A good education, opportunities beyond the boundaries of our small town, a chance to choose her own path. "Someday," Claire would say, looking out over our 180 acres, "I'm going to make you proud, Dad. This farm will become something amazing." I already was proud, every time she brought home straight A's. When she was accepted to the University of Wisconsin with a partial scholarship, the day she graduated with a business degree, the first Dalton to finish college, me standing in the back of the auditorium in my one good suit, clapping until my hands hurt. "We did it, Dad," she whispered when she hugged me afterward, her graduation cap askew. "Someday all of this will be yours back, 1,000 times over." Those words carried me through years of hardship, through the loan I took out to help pay for her education, through the lonely nights in our too-quiet farmhouse, through the economic downturns that threatened to take everything my family had built over generations. I believed in Claire. I believed in us. Then she met Ryan Mitchell at a friend's wedding in Madison. Tall, confident Ryan with his business degree from Northwestern and his perfect white smile. The kind of man who always looked like he'd just stepped out of a magazine advertisement. When Claire brought him home to the farm, I tried to see what she saw in him. "Mr. Dalton," he said, shaking my hand with a grip that was too firm, too eager to impress. "Claire's told me so much about this place. What a legacy you've built." Something in his eyes made me uneasy, the way they scanned the property, assessing, calculating. But Claire was glowing, happier than I'd seen her in years, so I pushed aside my reservations and welcomed him to our home. "Call me Sam," I said, though the name felt strange on his tongue when he used it. Their courtship was brief. 6 months later, Claire called with news of their engagement, her voice bubbling with excitement. The wedding was small but elegant, held in the meadow behind our farmhouse. I walked her down the aisle we'd created between rows of white chairs, her arm linked through mine, and tried to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. "You okay, Dad?" she whispered as we reached the floral arch where Ryan waited. I squeezed her hand. Just happy for you, sweetheart. And I was. Or I tried to. B. After the wedding, they moved into a sleek apartment in Madison. Claire took a marketing job with a promising startup. Ryan worked for a development company that specialized in rural land acquisition. They visited less and less frequently as months passed. When they did come, Ryan would walk the property with that same calculating gaze, asking questions about acreage, about water rights, about zoning regulations, just interested in the family business. He'd say with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. Claire changed too. The practical farm girl who once helped deliver calves now wrinkled her nose at the smell of the barn. Her clothes became more expensive, her manner more polished. She'd check her phone constantly during visits, always seeming half elsewhere. The farm's looking a bit run down, Dad, she remarked during one Sunday dinner, 3 years into her marriage. Have you thought about modernizing? Or maybe scaling back? It's the same as it's always been, I replied, hurt by the criticism. Ryan jumped in smoothly. What Claire means is that there's so much potential here. This land could be worth a fortune with the right development plan. It's not about, money, I said quietly. This land is our heritage. Heritage doesn't pay the bills, Sam. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're not getting any younger, you know. Have you thought about your future? About retirement? I hadn't. The farm was my life. I couldn't imagine leaving it. Couldn't bear the thought of the barns being torn down, the fields paved over for some subdivision or shopping center. That night, after they left, I sat on the porch swing Elaine and I had installed when we first moved in. The crickets chirped in the darkness, and the moon cast silver light across the fields that had been in my family for 4 generations. What would you do, Elaine? I whispered to the night sky. But of course there was no answer. I didn't know then that the real answer would, come to me in the most unexpected way. That it would break my heart and save my soul in the same moment. That it would test everything I believed about family, about loyalty, about love itself. I didn't know that soon. I'd have to make the hardest choice of my life. The day everything changed started like any other. I woke before sunrise, made my coffee in the darkness, and headed out to the barn. The morning was cool for late May, mist rising from the fields as the first birds began to call. After finishing the morning milking, I checked on a pregnant heifer due any day now, and repaired a section of fence that had been damaged in the previous night's thunderstorm. By noon, sweat soaked my shirt despite the mild temperature. I headed back to the house for lunch, absently noting that I'd, need to pick up feed from the co-op later. As I washed my hands at the kitchen sink, my phone buzzed on the counter. Drying my hands on a dish towel, I picked it up, expecting a call from Jim Henderson about borrowing my tractor attachment. Instead, the screen showed a voice message from a number I didn't recognize. Probably another telemarketer, I thought, but pressed play anyway as I made a sandwich. The voice that filled my kitchen froze me in place, knife hovering over the bread. Hey babe, did you talk to him yet? It was Claire, but her tone was unfamiliar. Sharp, calculating. We need to move this along before he gets suspicious. A pause, then Ryan's voice, slightly muffled, as if he was driving. Not yet. I'm working on it. Trust me, it's better if we ease into it. Your dad's stubborn. Dad's too naive, Claire replied, and I could hear the smirk in her voice. We'll take the farm soon enough. The development offer is time-sensitive, though. We need to get him to sign over everything before the end of the month. He will, Ryan assured her. He thinks you're his precious little girl who can do no wrong. We just need to convince him it's for his own good. Play up the whole, you're getting older, you need security angle. Claire laughed, a cold, dismissive sound I'd never heard from her before. Whatever works. Just get it done. Imagine what we could do with $5 million. 7, Ryan corrected. If we push for the commercial zoning. Even better. Look, I've got to go. Call me after you. The message cut off abruptly. My hands had gone numb, the knife clattering to the floor. I stared at the phone, unable to process what I'd just heard. My stomach lurched, acid rising in my throat. It had to be a mistake, some cruel joke. Claire couldn't talk about me that way. About our family land as if it were nothing but a cash cow to be slaughtered. With trembling fingers, I played the message again, and again. Each time the words cut deeper, sharper. My daughter's voice unmistakable. Her dismissal of me, Dad's too naive, like I was some doddering fool to be manipulated. The casual discussion of selling off generations of Dalton history for a quick profit. I sank into a kitchen chair, Sandwich forgotten. Outside, the day continued. Bees buzzing among the clover, the distant lowing of cattle, a tractor rumbling on the neighboring farm. Inside, my world collapsed. How long had they been planning this? How many of their recent visits had been reconnaissance missions rather than family reunions? How many times had Claire hugged me while mentally calculating the value of the land beneath our feet? The phone rang again, startling me. Claire's name appeared on the screen. For a moment, I stared at it, a maelstrom of emotions churning inside me. Then, I answered. Dad? Hey, I was just calling to see if you're free for dinner this weekend. Ryan and I thought we'd drive up, maybe stay over. There's something important we want to talk to you about. Her voice was warm, excited. The Claire I thought I knew. The disconnect between this call and the message I just heard was dizzying. Something important? I managed to say, my own voice sounding distant to my ears. Yeah, about the future. Your future, actually. But I don't want to get into it over the phone. Is Saturday good? Saturday. 3 days away. 3 days to decide how to confront the fact that my only child was plotting behind my back. 3 days to figure out how to face the betrayal that was tearing my heart in two. Dad, you there? Saturday's fine, I heard myself say. I'll make pot roast. Perfect. Ryan's really looking forward to it. Oh, and can you make sure those papers we talked about last time are ready? The ones from your safe? Just so we can go over everything while we're there. Papers. The deed to the farm. The will I'd updated last year, leaving everything to Claire. They weren't just coming for dinner. They were coming to close the deal. I'll have everything ready, I promised, amazed at how steady my voice sounded when everything inside me was breaking. Great. Love you, Dad. See you Saturday. Love you too, sweetheart. I replied automatically, the words catching in my throat. The call ended, and I stared at the silent phone, feeling as if I'd just spoken to a stranger wearing my daughter's face. Outside, clouds had so moved in, casting shadows across the fields. I walked to the window, looking out at the land that had sustained my family for generations. The old oak tree where I'd built Claire a swing. The pond where I'd taught her to fish. The rolling pastures where we'd laid on summer nights, naming constellations. All of it, just dollar signs to her now. And I was nothing but an obstacle, a naive old man to be manipulated and discarded. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying the message, remembering Claire's childhood, searching for signs I might have missed. Had I spoiled her? Failed her somehow? When had money become more important than family, than heritage, than the values I thought I'd instilled in her? By dawn, I'd made a decision. My heart was broken, but my mind was clear. If Claire and Ryan wanted the farm so badly they could have it, but not in the way they planned. I dressed carefully in the gray morning light, putting on the suit I reserved for funerals and weddings. I retrieved the deed and other important papers from the safe hidden behind Elaine's portrait in the study. Then I drove into town, the rising sun at my back, toward a future I never could have imagined. My destination, Howard Brooks' notary office, where I would ensure that the Dalton legacy would continue, just not in the hands of those who saw it only as a price tag. Howard Brooks had been Madison's most trusted notary for over 30 years. His office, tucked above the old hardware store on Main Street, smelled of leather-bound ledgers and coffee. The wooden stairs creaked under my feet as I climbed to his door, the manila envelope containing my farm's papers clutched tightly in my hand. Sam Dalton, he greeted me, rising from behind his desk. His eyebrows lifted at the sight of my formal attire. Wasn't expecting you today. Everything all right? I'd known Howard since high school. He'd handled my parents' will, my marriage license to Elaine, and the transfer of the farm to my name. He'd watched Claire grow up, had attended her graduation party. Need to make some changes to my will and property arrangements, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Some significant changes. Howard gestured to the chair across from his desk. Have a seat. Can I get you some coffee? I shook my head. Just need to get this done. Something in my tone made him study me more carefully. Sam, you know I've got to ask. Is someone pressuring you to make these changes? You seem different today. A bitter laugh escaped me. Not pressuring, not directly. I placed my phone on his desk and played the message. Howard's face darkened as he listened, his professional demeanor slipping to reveal shock, then anger on my behalf. Jesus, Sam, he whispered when it finished. I'm so sorry. Don't be, just help me make sure they don't get what they want. For the next hour, we worked through the paperwork. I explained exactly what I wanted to do, and Howard, though clearly surprised by my decision, helped me navigate the legal requirements. By noon, it was done. The Dalton Dairy Farm, all 180 acres, the house, the equipment, and the herd, everything transferred to the Wisconsin Harvest Foundation, a nonprofit organization that helped feed hungry families and provided agricultural training to disadvantaged youth. Are you absolutely certain, Sam? Howard asked as I signed the final document. This is irrevocable. Once I file these papers, the farm legally belongs to the foundation. I paused, pen hovering over the signature line. Images flashed through my mind. My father teaching me to milk cows, Elaine and I painting the farmhouse, baby Claire taking her first steps across the kitchen floor, countless sunrises and sunsets over fields that had sustained us through good years and bad. Then Claire's cold voice, Dad's too naive. We'll take the farm soon. My hand moved decisively across the paper. I'm certain. Howard notarized the documents, his stamp, punctuating the end of my family's ownership with a dull thud. What now? He asked. Now I go home and wait for Saturday, I replied, rising from the chair. And I need one more favor. When Claire and Ryan come here, and they will once they realize what's happened, I want you to be the one to explain it to them. Of course, he agreed. But Sam, where will you go? What will you do? I hadn't thought that far ahead. The farm was all I'd ever known. I've got some savings, enough to rent something small. As for what I'll do, I shrugged. I'm still a farmer, just without a farm. Howard squeezed my shoulder. You're welcome to stay with Martha and me until you sort things out. I thanked him but declined. I needed solitude to process what was happening, to grieve for the daughter I thought I knew. The drive home felt surreal. The farm looked different somehow as I pulled up the long driveway. No longer mine, though nothing had visibly changed. The cows still grazed in the pasture. The windmill still turned lazily in the afternoon breeze. The farmhouse still stood, solid and familiar, against the blue Wisconsin sky. Inside, I moved through the rooms slowly, touching things. Elaine's quilts, Claire's childhood drawings framed on the walls, the wooden spoons worn smooth by decades of use. I wasn't just leaving a property. I was leaving memories, identity, purpose. In Claire's old bedroom, I sat on the edge of the twin bed, still covered with the floral bedspread she'd picked out as a teenager. On her dresser, a photograph, Claire at 16 sitting on the tractor with me, both of us grinning. I picked it up, studied it, trying to reconcile that smiling girl with the woman who could dismiss me so coldly. Where did I lose you? I whispered to the image. No answer came, of course. Just the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway, counting down the seconds to Saturday. That night, I packed a single suitcase, clothes, toiletries, important documents. I wrote a letter to Miguel and his family, my farmhands for over a decade, explaining that the farm was changing ownership, but that the foundation would likely keep them on. I left it on the kitchen table alongside a month's pay in advance. Then I called Jim Henderson. Jim, it's Sam. Sorry for the late call, but I need a favor. Can you look after the herd for a few days? Make sure the milking gets done? Of course I can, he replied, without hesitation. Everything all right? It will be, I said. Not quite a lie. I just need to step away for a bit. After hanging up, I walked out onto the porch and sat in the darkness, listening to the night sounds of the farm. Cricket chirps, the rustle of wind through corn, the occasional low from the barn. The stars spread across the sky. Same stars my ancestors had gazed upon from this very spot. I'm sorry, I said aloud, though I wasn't sure who I was apologizing to, my parents, my grandparents, Elaine, or perhaps myself. I slept little that night. Before the first light of dawn broke the horizon, I loaded my suitcase into my truck, took one last look at the farmhouse, and drove away. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't be there when Claire and Ryan arrived on Saturday, believing they were about to claim their prize. Howard would call me when it was done, when they knew. Until then, I'd drive, think, try to make sense of a world that had suddenly tilted on its axis. As I passed the property line, a weight lifted from my shoulders. Not the burden of the farm, which had never felt like a burden, but the weight of betrayal. Whatever happened next, I had protected the land from being carved up and sold off. The Dalton Dairy Farm would continue to produce food, to provide jobs, to stand as a testament to hard work and care for the land. Just not in my family's name. Not anymore. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the hurt and disbelief, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. I spent the next 2 days driving through the Wisconsin countryside, stopping in small towns I'd never visited despite their proximity to my farm. I stayed at a modest motel in Baraboo, ate at diners, walked through parks. To anyone watching, I might have looked like a tourist or a retiree enjoying a leisurely road trip. Inside, I was a man adrift, trying to find solid ground in a world where my only child had revealed herself as a stranger. On Saturday morning, the day Claire and Ryan were due at the farm, my phone rang. Howard's name flashed on the screen. "They're here," he said without preamble. "In my office. They brought the papers they wanted you to sign." I gripped the phone tighter. "And?" I told them the property has already been transferred. They didn't believe me at first. The young man, Ryan, he laughed like it was some joke. Then I showed them the documents. I closed my eyes, imagining the scene. "And Claire? How did she react?" Howard's voice softened. "She's upset, Sam. Very upset. She's demanding to know where you are. Says there must be some mistake." "No mistake," I said firmly. "Tell them I'll meet them at your office at 4 o'clock. Not before." I spent the day driving back toward Madison, stopping at a roadside diner for lunch I couldn't taste. By 3:30, I was parked outside Howard's office, gathering my courage. At precisely 4 o'clock, I climbed those creaking wooden stairs once more. The scene in the office was exactly as I'd imagined. Claire pacing frantically, her face flushed with anger and confusion. Ryan standing by the window, his usual polished demeanor cracked to reveal the calculation beneath. Howard behind his desk, solemn and watchful. Claire froze when I entered. "Dad!" She rushed toward me, reaching for my hands. "There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Mr. Brooks says you've given away the farm? That can't be right." I looked into her eyes, Elaine's eyes, searching for the daughter I'd raised. All I saw was panic and desperation. Not for me, but for the fortune that had just slipped through her fingers. "It's no misunderstanding," I said quietly, stepping back from her reach. "The farm belongs to the Wisconsin Harvest Foundation now. It's done." Ryan stepped forward, his lawyer's smile firmly in place. "Sam, let's be reasonable. You made this decision hastily, obviously under some kind of stress. We can contest this. Temporary insanity, undue influence." "Play the message," I interrupted, looking at Howard. "What message?" Claire asked, her voice rising. "Dad, what's going on?" Howard pressed play on my phone, which he'd kept in his desk. Claire and Ryan's voices filled the room. Cold, calculating, dismissive. "Dad's too naive. We'll take the farm soon." Claire's face drained of color. Ryan's smile vanished. "You weren't supposed to get that," he said finally. "Clearly," I replied. Claire's shock transformed quickly to indignation. "You've been spying on us? Going through our private conversations?" "The message was sent to my phone by accident," I corrected her. "Apparently I wasn't meant to know how you really see me, or what you plan to do with my life's work." "Dad, it wasn't like that," Claire insisted, tears filling her eyes. "We were just talking. People say things they don't mean all the time." "You meant it," I said softly. "Both of you. You saw an old man with valuable land, not a father who sacrificed everything for his daughter." Ryan's facade crumbled entirely. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he hissed. "That land was worth millions. We had buyers lined up, development plans approved. You've ruined everything." "Ryan, stop," Claire warned, but it was too late. The truth was out. "Those development plans," I said. "When exactly were you going to tell me about them? Before or after you convinced me to sign over the farm?" Claire reached for me again. "Dad, please, we can fix this. We'll find a way to reverse the transfer." "There's nothing to fix," I told her. "The farm will continue to operate. The foundation will maintain the land, keep the dairy running. They'll use the profits to help people who need it. No strip malls, no subdivisions, no golf courses." "But it was supposed to be mine," Claire cried, finally dropping the pretense. "You always said everything you did was for me, that it would all be mine someday." "I built a legacy for you," I corrected her. "Not a lottery ticket. There's a difference." Ryan paced the office like a caged animal. "This is ridiculous. No judge will uphold this transfer. We'll fight it." Howard cleared his throat. "Mr. Mitchell, I can assure you the transfer is legally binding." Mr. Dalton was of sound mind, under no duress and fully aware of his actions. "Should you attempt to contest it, the recording would become evidence. I doubt that would serve your interests." The reality of the situation finally seemed to sink in. Claire collapsed into a chair, shoulders shaking with sobs that looked more like frustration than grief. Ryan loosened his tie, face flushed with anger. "Dad, Claire whispered, looking up at me. You planned this? All of it? I met her gaze steadily. Yes. Why? She demanded. To punish us? To make some kind of point? To protect what matters, I replied simply. The farm has fed people for 4 generations. It's given jobs to dozens of families. It's a living piece of history. I couldn't let it be destroyed for profit. What about us? Claire asked. What about your own daughter? The question struck me like a physical blow. What about us indeed? What remained of the bond between father and daughter when trust had been so thoroughly broken? You have your life in Madison, I said finally. Your career, your husband, your plans. You made it clear the farm wasn't part of that life, except as an asset to be liquidated. And what will you do now? She asked, a hint of concern finally breaking through her anger. Start over, I said. I'm 59, not dead. I've got some savings, skills, health. I'll be fine. Ryan snorted derisively. You'll regret this, Sam. When you're living in some rundown apartment, working as a Walmart greeter to make ends meet, you'll wish you'd been smarter. I looked at him, really looked at him, for perhaps the first time. This was the man my daughter had chosen. This was the influence that had changed her so profoundly. I'd rather live honestly in a shack than in a mansion built on betrayal, I told him. That's the difference between us, Ryan. And maybe between the man I raised Claire to be and the woman she's become. Claire flinched as if I'd slapped her. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Shame, perhaps, or the ghost of the daughter I'd known. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. Come on, Ryan. We're leaving. She stood, gathering her purse and coat. At the door, she paused, looking back at me. This isn't over. It is for me, I said quietly. After they stormed out, Howard broke the silence. You okay, Sam? I wasn't. Not by a long shot, but I nodded anyway. I will be. What now? He asked. Now, I said. I figure out what the rest of my life looks like. As I walked down those creaking stairs for what might be the last time, I felt both heavier and lighter. I had lost my farm and my daughter in one fell swoop, but I had kept my integrity, my principles, and perhaps most importantly, my control over my own life and legacy. Outside, the afternoon sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across Main Street. I stood on the sidewalk, breathing deeply, feeling like a man emerging from a long illness, weakened but surviving. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. Not as a naive old man to be manipulated, but as Samuel Dalton, maker of my own destiny. The motel room in Madison became my temporary home, a generic space with beige walls, a lumpy mattress, and a small desk where I'd sit each morning, watching dawn break over the parking lot. Not exactly the sunrise over rolling fields I'd known my whole life, but it was something to anchor my days. A week passed, then 2. I established a routine of sorts. Breakfast at the diner across the street, long walks through the city parks, afternoons spent at the public library researching apartments and job opportunities. Nights were the hardest. In the quiet, darkness, doubts crept in. Had I been too harsh? Too impulsive? Should I have confronted Claire directly instead of making such a drastic decision? But then I'd remember her voice. Dad's too naive. We'll take the farm soon. And I knew I'd done what was necessary. Howard called regularly to check on me and update me on the farm's transition. The Wisconsin Harvest Foundation had taken ownership, smoothly retaining Miguel and his family as workers. They planned to maintain the dairy operation while developing educational programs for underprivileged youth. They're good people, Sam, Howard assured me. They'll honor the land. And Claire? I couldn't help asking. Have you heard anything? His hesitation told me everything. They've consulted with a lawyer about contesting the transfer. But given the recording and the fact that you were clearly of sound mind, they don't have much of a case. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Thank you, Howard, for everything. Sam, he said before hanging up, Martha and I are having a cookout this Sunday. Nothing fancy, just a few friends. You should come, get out of that motel room for a bit. I almost declined, but the thought of another solitary weekend was suddenly unbearable. What time? I asked instead. Sunday arrived with perfect late spring weather. Clear skies, gentle breeze, temperature in the mid-70s. I drove to Howard and Martha's suburban home, a modest ranch-style house with a well-tended garden. The normality of it struck me as I parked at the curb. Regular people living regular lives, untouched by the kind of betrayal that had shattered mine. Martha greeted me with a warm hug. "Sam Dalton, it's been too long," she scolded gently. "Come on in. Everyone's out back." Everyone turned out to be a small gathering. Howard at the grill, their daughter Emily and her husband, a couple I vaguely recognized from town, and a woman I didn't know, sitting slightly apart with a glass of lemonade. She looked to be in her 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a casual knot and glasses perched on her nose as she read a paperback. Martha made introductions all around, ending with, "And that's Catherine Reed. Kate, this is Sam Dalton, an old friend of ours." Kate looked up, marking her place in the book with her finger. "The dairy farmer, right? Howard's mentioned you." There was something refreshingly direct about her gaze, an intelligence that reminded me of my late wife. "Former dairy farmer," I corrected, settling into an adjacent chair. "Recent retiree, I suppose you could say." "Forced retirement or chosen?" she asked, then immediately shook her head. "Sorry, that's none of my business. Occupational hazard." "What occupation is that?" "High school counselor," she replied with a small smile. 30 years of asking teenagers invasive questions has ruined my social skills. I found myself smiling back, the expression feeling rusty on my face. "Chosen, I guess," in a manner of speaking. Kate nodded, not pushing for details. Instead, she asked about dairy farming. Genuine questions about the work, the animals, the rhythm of farm life. I found myself talking more than I had in weeks, describing the satisfaction of seeing healthy calves born, the challenge of predicting milk production, the peace of early mornings in the barn. "You miss it," she observed when I fell silent. "Every day," I admitted. "But some decisions can't be unmade." She studied me thoughtfully. "No, they can't. But new decisions are always waiting to be made." She held up her book, A Guide to Urban Gardening. "Take me, for instance. Never grew so much as a houseplant until my husband died 3 years ago. Now I've got a backyard full of vegetables and flowers. Not exactly a dairy farm, but it's something living, something growing." The simplicity of her perspective struck me. Something living, something growing. Wasn't that what I'd been missing these past weeks? Martha called everyone to the table then, laden with typical cookout fare: burgers, potato salad, corn on the cob. Conversation flowed easily around me, and for the first time since leaving the farm, I felt a fragment of normalcy return. These people didn't see me as a naive old man or a failing farmer. They saw me as Sam Dalton, a person with value beyond his property. As the afternoon waned, Kate mentioned she needed to head home to water her garden before dark. Without overthinking it, I offered to walk her to her car. "I've enjoyed talking with you," I said as we reached her modest sedan. "Likewise," she replied, those direct eyes meeting mine again. "Howard and Martha have a book club that meets monthly. You should join us sometime. We're reading Barbara Kingsolver next, all about farm life. Could use your expertise." I hesitated only briefly. "I'd like that." As I drove back to my motel that evening, I realized I'd gone hours without thinking about Claire or Ryan or the farm. The constant ache in my chest had eased just slightly. It wasn't healing, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of the possibility of healing. The next morning, I made a decision. I couldn't stay in the motel indefinitely. I needed a home, even a temporary one. I called a real estate agent and arranged to look at apartments. The third place we viewed was a small second-floor unit above a flower shop on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. 1 bedroom, a combined living and dining area, a kitchenette with outdated appliances. But the windows faced east, catching the morning sun, and the rent was reasonable. "I'll take it," I told the agent. That afternoon, I bought the essentials: a bed, a table with 2 chairs, a comfortable recliner, basic kitchen supplies. The next day, I moved in, arranging my meager possessions in the new space. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A place to start over. I hung only one item on the walls: a photograph of the farm at sunrise, mist rising from the fields, the old oak tree silhouetted against the dawn sky. Not to torture myself with what I'd lost, but to remember where I'd come from, to honor the past while I figured out the future. 3 days later, an unexpected knock came at my door. I opened it to find Miguel, my former farmhand, holding a cardboard box. "Mr. Dalton," he said, his expression a mixture of uncertainty and determination. "I hope you don't mind me coming. Mrs. Brooks told me where to find you." "Miguel," I said, genuinely pleased to see him. "Come in, please." He stepped inside, glancing around the apartment. "It's different from the farm." That it is, I agreed with a rueful smile. How are things going there? With the foundation? Good, Mr. Dalton. They're good people. They've kept me and my family on, even given us the foreman's cottage to live in. He placed the box on the table. That's partly why I'm here. When we moved in, we found these things in the storage shed. I thought you might want them. I opened the box cautiously. Inside were personal items I'd overlooked in my hasty departure. Photo albums, Elaine's favorite vase, Claire's baby book, a few books that had belonged to my father. Thank you, I said, my voice rough with emotion. This means a lot. Miguel shifted uncomfortably. There's something else, Mr. Dalton. Your daughter and her husband, they came to the farm yesterday. They were asking questions, taking pictures, talking about legal challenges to the transfer. My stomach tightened. Did they bother you or your family? No, sir. The foundation manager asked them to leave when they started upsetting the cows. A small smile flickered across his face. But I thought you should know. They seemed determined. They can be determined all they want, I said with more confidence than I felt. The transfer is legal. Final. After Miguel left, I sat at my small table looking through the rescued items. Claire's baby book was particularly difficult to examine, her tiny handprint pressed in paint, a lock of hair from her first haircut, her school photos year by year. The progression from the smiling, open-faced child to the calculating woman who could dismiss me so coldly was stark and painful. I closed the book and put it away. The past couldn't be changed. All I could do was move forward. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote, just a few paragraphs in a notebook I'd purchased for grocery lists, describing the day, my feelings, my hopes and fears for the future. It wasn't profound or polished, but it was honest. And in that honesty, I found a small measure of peace. Today, I wrote, I realized that while I've lost much, I am not lost. There is a difference. The book club met in the back room of Madison's oldest independent bookstore, a creaky-floored establishment with floor-to-ceiling shelves and the comforting scent of paper and coffee. I arrived early, Catherine Kingsolver's animal-vegetable miracle tucked under my arm, nervousness fluttering in my stomach like I was a teenager on a first date rather than a 59-year-old man attending a literary discussion. Kate spotted me from across the room and waved me over. You came, she said, sounding genuinely pleased. How did you like the book? It resonated, I admitted. Different type of farming than I'm used to, but the connection to the land, the cycles of growth and harvest, that's universal. The discussion was lively, with 8 participants ranging from a college professor to a retired postal worker. I mostly listened, offering occasional insights about the realities of agricultural life. When I described the satisfaction of eating vegetables you've grown yourself or drinking milk from cows you've raised, several members nodded in understanding. That's what I miss most about the farm, I concluded. That direct connection to sustenance, knowing exactly where my food comes from because I produced it myself. You could start a garden, Kate suggested after the meeting as we walked toward the parking lot. Your apartment might not have land, but there's a community garden project just 3 blocks from here. They're always looking for people with farming experience. The idea took root immediately. Do you have contact information for them? She did better than that. The following Saturday, she picked me up and drove me to the community garden. Once vacant lot transformed into a patchwork of raised beds, fruit trees, and communal growing spaces. Kate! A white-haired woman in overalls waved from beside a compost bin. You brought reinforcements. Gloria, this is Sam Dalton, former dairy farmer looking to get his hands dirty again. Sam Gloria Ramirez, the heart and soul of Madison East Community Garden. Gloria's handshake was firm, her dark eyes appraising. Dairy man, huh? What do you know about vegetables? Enough to know I've got plenty to learn, I replied honestly. She grinned. Good answer. Come on, I'll show you around. The tour revealed an impressive operation. 32 individual plots for community members, plus communal areas for herbs, berries, and fruit trees. A greenhouse constructed from salvaged windows. Rain barrels and a solar-powered irrigation system. Everything meticulously maintained by volunteers. We've got 1 plot available, Gloria told me. It's small, but it's yours if you want it. 10 hours of community service per month is all we ask in return. Helping with maintenance, teaching workshops, that sort of thing. I'd like that very much, I said, already envisioning what I might, plant. That afternoon, I signed up for the plot and spent hours turning the soil, working compost into the dark earth. The physical labor felt good after weeks of relative inactivity. The smell of soil, the warmth of the sun on my back, the distant chatter of other gardeners. It wasn't the farm, but it was something alive, something growing, as Kate had put it. She worked her own plot nearby, occasionally offering suggestions or bringing me water. By day's end, my muscles ached pleasantly, and my small patch was ready for planting. Ambitious plans? Kate asked as we walked back to her car. Tomatoes, peppers, beans to start, maybe some herbs. I smiled. Nothing like the 100 acres of corn we used to grow, but it's a beginning. Beginnings are underrated, she replied, especially at our age. The next few weeks established a new routine. Mornings at the garden, afternoons applying for jobs, evenings reading or writing in my journal. I began having dinner with Kate once a week, sometimes at local restaurants, sometimes at her small house with its vibrant backyard garden, occasionally at my apartment where I'd cook simple meals in my tiny kitchen. We were friends, first and foremost. Two people who had experienced significant loss finding comfort in shared interests and straightforward conversation. If there was the potential for something more, neither of us rushed toward it. We had both learned the value of patience. 1 month after moving into my apartment, I landed a job at the local agricultural extension office. Nothing glamorous, just administrative work, helping local farmers access resources and information. But it utilized my knowledge, kept me connected to the agricultural community, and provided steady income. It felt right somehow. A way to serve the farming community even though I was no longer directly part of it. Life was developing a comfortable rhythm when Howard called one evening in early August. "Sam," he said without preamble, "Claire came to my office today. She wants to meet with you." My heart stuttered. Why? She wouldn't say specifically, just that it's important and personal. Howard paused. She was alone, no Ryan, and she seemed different. More like the Claire I remember from before. I gripped the phone tighter. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd pass along the request, but the decision was yours." She left. Her number. Said you could call or text if you were willing to meet. After hanging up, I paced my small apartment, emotions churning. Part of me wanted to refuse outright. The wound of her betrayal was still raw. But another part, the father who had raised her, loved her, sacrificed for her, couldn't completely shut the door. I called Kate. "If it were your daughter, what would you do?" I asked. After explaining the situation, she considered the question carefully. I'd meet her, but on my terms. Neutral location, time limit, clear boundaries, and I'd prepare myself for disappointment while remaining open to surprise. "Wise counsel," I said. "Thank you." "That's what friends are for," she replied simply. "And Sam, whatever happens, you've built a good life here. Remember that." The next morning, I texted Claire, "Coffee shop on Main Street, tomorrow, 10 a.m., 1 hour. Her reply came almost instantly. "I'll be there. Thank you, Dad." I arrived early, securing a corner table where we could speak privately. When Claire walked in precisely at 10, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the polished businesswoman with designer clothes and perfect makeup. This Claire wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, much like she'd worn it growing up on the farm. But the most striking change was in her eyes. Uncertainty had replaced the confident calculation I'd seen at Howard's office. She hesitated before sitting down. "Thank you for coming." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak yet. "I ordered your usual," she said, gesturing to the counter. "Black coffee, 1 sugar." "Some things don't change," I replied. "And some things do," she said quietly. "Ryan and I are getting divorced." Of all the things I'd imagined she might say, this wasn't on the list. "I'm sorry," I said automatically, years of parenting overriding recent history. "Don't be, it's been a long time coming." She traced the rim of her mug with 1 finger. The farm situation just brought everything to a head, made me see who he really was, who I was becoming around him. The barista delivered our drinks. I took a sip, gathering my thoughts. "Why are you telling me this, Claire?" "Because I owe you an explanation. And an apology." She looked directly at me. Elaine's eyes filled with tears. "What you heard on that message, it was inexcusable. I can't take it back or make it right. But I want you to know it wasn't always me. The person I was with Ryan, that wasn't who I want to be." I remained silent, letting her continue. After the wedding, things changed gradually. Ryan had big plans, always talking about money, status, making it big. At first, I admired his ambition. Then I started to adopt it. Started seeing everything, even the farm, even you, in terms of what it could get us. She wiped away a tear. "I forgot where I came from, who raised me. The values you and Mom taught me. And now? I asked, my voice rougher than I intended. Now I'm trying to remember, to find my way back to who I was before. She reached for my hand, then stopped, uncertain. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Dad. I don't deserve that. I'm not asking for money or help or anything material. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I lost. Not the farm, but something much more valuable. The coffee shop bustled around us, patrons coming and going, unaware of the weight of the moment unfolding at our corner table. I studied my daughter's face, searching for signs of manipulation or deceit. I found only regret and a fragile hope. It will take time, I said finally. Trust, once broken, isn't easily rebuilt. I know, she whispered. But is it possible? Someday? I thought of my small apartment, my community garden plot, my new job, Kate, the life I was building from the ashes of betrayal. And I thought of the little girl who once rode on my shoulders through fields of corn, who drew pictures of cows with impossible colors, who had been the center of my world for so many years. Someday, I said, we can try. The relief on her face was palpable. That's all I can ask for. As I walked back to my apartment after our meeting, I felt lighter somehow. Not healed. That would take much longer. But perhaps on the path toward healing. Claire and I had a long road ahead, with no guarantees. But we had taken the first step. That evening, I sat on my small balcony, watching the sunset paint the Madison skyline in shades of gold and pink. Different from the farm sunsets I'd known all my life, but beautiful in its own way. New, but not lesser. In my journal, I wrote, "Today, I learned that endings can become beginnings if we're brave enough to take that first step forward." Autumn transformed Madison with a riot of color. Crimson maples, golden oaks, deep purple asters blooming along sidewalks. My community garden plot yielded its final harvests: pumpkins, late tomatoes, hardy kale that would continue even after the first frost. Each time I knelt in that small patch of soil, I felt more connected to my new life. Claire and I met regularly now. Weekly coffee, occasionally lunch, small steps toward rebuilding what had been shattered. Sometimes our conversations flowed easily, reminiscing about her childhood on the farm, discussing books we'd both read or current events. Other times, tension crept in, usually when the subject veered too close to Ryan or the farm. We were learning a new way to be father and daughter, tentative, careful, but increasingly genuine. I found a job at a local marketing firm, she told me during one lunch. Nothing fancy starting at the bottom again, but it feels right. Starting over isn't easy, I said. I'm proud of you for trying. Her eyes brightened at the praise, reminding me of the little girl who had beamed when I complimented her arithmetic or her careful lettering in school. Some things remained, underneath it all. One crisp October afternoon, Kate and I walked through the University Arboretum, admiring the fall foliage. Our friendship had deepened over the months, comfortable yet charged with something neither of us had yet named. I've been invited to Thanksgiving at the farm, I told her as we paused beside a maple tree blazing with color. The foundation hosts a community dinner for their staff and program participants. Howard and Martha are going too. That sounds wonderful, she said. How do you feel about going back? I considered the question. Nervous, but also curious. I'd like to see what they've done with the place. Will Claire be there? I haven't asked her yet. I hesitated. Actually, I was wondering if you might want to come with me. Kate's expression softened. I'd like that very much. That evening, I called Claire. The foundation's hosting Thanksgiving at the farm. I'm going. I thought you might want to know. Silence stretched across the line. Then, would it be okay if I came too? It's a community event, open to all, I said. But yes, I'd like it if you were there. Really? The hope in her voice was palpable. Really? I paused. I'm bringing a friend, Kate Reed. She's important to me. I look forward to meeting her, Claire said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. November arrived with biting winds and early snow flurries. As Thanksgiving approached, my anticipation grew. I hadn't set foot on the farm since that dawn departure nearly 6 months earlier. I wondered how it would feel to be a visitor on land that had been in my family for generations. The day dawned clear and cold, the sky a brilliant blue above fields dusted with frost. Kate drove, understanding without explanation why I might not want to be behind the wheel for this particular journey. Claire had texted that she'd meet us there. As we turned onto the familiar driveway, my breath caught. The farmhouse stood unchanged, white clapboard gleaming in the morning sun. The red barn had been freshly painted. The fields lay fallow for winter, the dairy cows dotting the nearest pasture with their black and white bodies. "It's beautiful," Kate said softly, "just as you described it." We parked among dozens of other vehicles, the event clearly well attended. Near the barn entrance, a banner welcomed guests to the first annual Wisconsin Harvest Foundation Thanksgiving celebration. Gloria from the A Community Garden spotted me immediately. "Sam, you made it!" She hurried over, enveloping me in a quick hug. "I've been dying for you to see what we've done with the educational garden behind the greenhouse." "You work with the foundation?" I asked, surprised. "Part-time. I help coordinate the urban gardening outreach." She grinned. "Small world, isn't it? Come on, there's someone I want you to meet." She led us to a tall, gray-haired man in conversation with Howard and Martha. "Dr. Jenkins, this is Sam Dalton, the former owner I told you about. Sam, this is James Jenkins, Executive Director of the Foundation." Dr. Jenkins turned, extending his hand. "Mr. Dalton, it's an honor to meet you. Your generosity has made an extraordinary difference in our ability to serve the community." "I'm just glad the farm is being put to good use," I replied, shaking his hand. "More than good use. Would you like a tour? See what we've been up to these past few months?" For the next hour, Dr. Jenkins showed us around the property. The dairy operation continued much as it had under my ownership, with Miguel now serving as head dairyman. The old equipment shed had been converted into a classroom, where local children learned about sustainable agriculture. A portion of the cornfields had been replanted with diverse crops, creating a teaching garden for organic farming methods. "We've maintained the productive aspects of the farm," Dr. Jenkins explained, "while expanding its educational mission. The dairy profits help fund our food security programs in Madison." "You've done well," I said, emotion thickening my voice. Better than I could have imagined. As we approached the farmhouse, I spotted Claire standing awkwardly near the porch steps. She wore a blue sweater I recognized, a Christmas gift from years ago, and her expression was a mixture of uncertainty and hope. "Dad," she said simply when we reached her. "Claire." I made the introductions. "This is Kate Reed." "Kate, my daughter." "Claire." The women shook hands, assessing each other with the particular care of people who understand they share importance in someone's life. Whatever they saw seemed to satisfy them both. "Dr. Jenkins was just giving us a tour," I explained. "Would you like to join us for the rest?" Claire nodded, falling into step beside us as we continued around the property. Occasionally, she would add a comment. "The oak tree by the pond was struck by lightning when I was 10. Or Dad built that section of fence the summer before I started high school." Small contributions that rooted the present in our shared past. Eventually, we reached the dining area set up in the cleared barn. Long tables laden with traditional Thanksgiving fare stretched the length of the space. Families, foundation staff, and community members mingled, the air filled with conversation and laughter. Dr. Jenkins was called away to address the gathering. Howard and Martha joined our small group, introductions were made, and we found seats together at one of the tables. "This is surreal," Claire whispered to me as we settled in. "Being back here but not belonging here anymore." "I know exactly what you mean," I replied. The meal began with Dr. Jenkins offering thanks for the bounty and for the community gathered to share it. Dishes were passed, plates filled, conversations flowed. I watched Kate chat easily with Howard about the book club's latest selection, saw Martha draw Claire into a discussion about her new job. Normal everyday interactions that somehow felt miraculous given the journey of the past 6 months. As dessert was being served, Miguel approached our table, his young son Diego in tow. "Mr. Dalton," he greeted me warmly. "It's good to see you here." "Miguel, the place looks wonderful. You're doing a fine job." He nodded, pride evident in his expression. "We try to honor the land as you did." He nudged Diego forward. "Remember Mr. Dalton? He taught you to milk Daisy last year." "The pie," boy grinned, showing a missing front tooth. "I remember. I help with the baby calves now. Dr. Jenkins says I'm a natural." "I bet you are," I replied, chest tight with unexpected emotion. Life had continued here. New stories were being written on the land my family had tended for generations, different stories than I might have imagined, but good ones nonetheless. After the meal, guests began to disperse. Some headed home, others lingered to help with cleanup, or simply to enjoy the crisp fall afternoon on the grounds. "I'd like to walk down to the pond," I told Kate. "Would you come with me?" "Of course," she agreed. Claire overheard. "The pond? I haven't been there in ages. She hesitated. Would it be all right if I joined you? Together, the three of us followed the familiar path through the apple orchard, now bare of leaves, down the gentle slope to the small pond that marked the property's southern boundary. Ice rimmed its edges, but the center remained liquid, reflecting the clear blue sky. Your mother loved this spot, I told Claire. She used to say it was where she could hear herself think. I remember, Claire said softly. She taught me to skip stones here. She glanced at Kate. My mother died when I was 12. Cancer. I'm sorry, Kate replied. That's much too young to lose a parent. Dad made sure I never felt her absence too keenly. Claire's eyes met mine. He was both parents to me for a long time. We stood in silence, watching a pair of late migrating ducks land on the pond's surface. The moment felt significant somehow. 3 people bound by, complicated threads of loss, hope, and new beginnings, standing on land that had witnessed generations of such human dramas. I should check if Martha and Howard are ready to leave, Kate said, clearly giving us a moment of privacy. I'll meet you back at the barn. When she had gone, Claire bent to pick up a flat stone. With practiced motion, she sent it skipping across the pond's surface. 1, 2, 3, 4 bounces before it sank. I've been seeing a therapist, she said suddenly, trying to understand why I let Ryan's values overshadow everything I was raised to believe in, why I was willing to hurt you to get ahead. I waited, sensing she needed to speak without interruption. She thinks part of it was fear of ending up with nothing, like we almost did that year the dairy. Prices collapsed. Remember? When we had to sell half the herd just to keep the farm? I nodded. That had been a dark time, lying awake nights wondering how I'd feed my child, pay the mortgage, keep the remaining animals healthy. I was 16, Claire continued, old enough to understand how close we came to losing everything. It terrified me. And then in college, I met all these people with trust. Funds and safety nets and generational wealth. People who never had to worry about one bad season taking everything. She skipped another stone. Ryan came from that world. He made me feel like I could be part of it too. Safe. Secure. Financial security isn't a bad thing to want, I said carefully. No, but the way I went about it was. She turned to face me fully. I'm not making excuses, Dad. What I did, what I was planning to do, was wrong. Cruel. Unforgivable. Not unforgivable, I corrected her. Difficult to forgive, yes, but not impossible. Hope flickered across her face. Really? I've had a lot of time to think these past months. About family? About legacy? About what matters in the end. I gazed out over the pond, gathering my thoughts. The farm was never just about land or money to me. It was about values. Working hard, taking care of what's yours, honoring those who came before, building something for those who come after. I understand that now, she said. Too late, but I understand. Not too late for everything, I replied. The land is gone, yes, but the values remain. Those can still be your inheritance if you choose to claim them. Tears filled her eyes. I'd like that very much. Then let's start there, I said simply. As we walked back toward the barn, where Kate waited near my old pickup truck now used by the foundation, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Not completely, trust would take much longer to rebuild, but enough to breathe more freely, to look toward the future with something approaching hope. That night in my apartment, I wrote, in my journal, today I walked the land of my ancestors as a visitor, not an owner. I broke bread with strangers and family in the barn where I was born. I began to forgive my daughter under the same sky that watched her learn to walk. Endings and beginnings are not so different after all. Both require courage, and both contain the seeds of what might yet grow. Spring came to Madison in fits and starts. Warm days followed by surprise snowfalls, crocuses pushing through half-frozen ground, birds returning to nest in the oak outside my apartment window. I had survived my first winter away from the farm, finding unexpected joy in city rhythms. Sunday jazz at the local cafe, evening walks along the lakeshore with Kate, weekly dinners with Claire at her new apartment near the university where she had enrolled in evening classes, pursuing a degree in social work. My own life had settled into a comfortable pattern. The job at the Agricultural Extension Office had expanded to include outreach to small family farms struggling with economic pressures, work that felt meaningful, that utilized my lifetime of experience. My community garden plot was carefully planned for the growing season, with Kate and I sharing adjacent spaces, our plantings complementary. Howard and Martha had become regular dinner guests, and Gloria from the community garden had adopted me into her extended family of urban farmers. One April morning, I arrived at the extension office to find Dr. Jenkins waiting in the reception area. "Mr. Dalton?" he greeted me, rising from his chair. "I apologize for dropping in unannounced, but I was hoping to speak with you about a proposition." We settled in the small conference room with cups of mediocre coffee. "The foundation has been operating the farm for nearly a year now," he began, "and I'm pleased to say it's been remarkably successful. The dairy production provides steady income, and our educational programs have expanded beyond our initial projections." "I'm glad to hear it," I said, genuinely pleased. "We're looking to expand further, specifically to develop a residential training program for young farmers. 6-month immersive experiences where participants learn sustainable farming practices, business management, and land stewardship." He leaned forward, eyes intent. "We need someone to lead this program. Someone with deep, practical knowledge. And a commitment to passing agricultural traditions to the next generation." I set my coffee down slowly. "You're offering me a job?" "More than a job, Mr. Dalton. We're offering you a chance to create your own legacy, to share your lifetime of knowledge with young people who want to learn. The position would include residents on the property. The foreman's cottage has been renovated specifically with this role in mind." My mind reeled. Return to the farm? Not as owner, but as teacher? Live again on the land I had loved and lost? "I'd need time to consider this," I said finally, "to discuss it with important people in my life." "Of course." Dr. Jenkins handed me a folder containing the formal offer. "Take all the time you need. The position would start in June, if you're interested." That evening, I invited Kate to dinner at my apartment. I had become a decent cook over the months, mastering simple but satisfying meals in my small kitchen. As we ate, I explained Dr. Jenkins' proposition. "What do you think?" I asked when I'd finished. Kate considered the question carefully, as was her way. "It sounds like an extraordinary opportunity, using your knowledge to shape a new generation of farmers, living on the land you love, coming full circle in a way." "But," I prompted, sensing her reservation. She smiled ruefully. "But selfishly, I'd miss having you close by. The garden plots, book club, our Sunday walks." She reached for my hand across the table. "These past months with you have been significant to me, Sam." The warmth of her touch anchored me. "They've been significant to me as well, more than I can adequately express. That said," she continued, "I don't want my feelings to influence a decision of this magnitude. This is about your life, your purpose." "My life includes you now," I said simply. "Your feelings matter in this decision." Her eyes softened at the declaration. "Then perhaps we need to consider what this opportunity means for both of us, not just for you alone." The next day, I called Claire and asked her to meet me at the cafe near her apartment. When I described the foundation's offer, her expression was complex. Joy and pain mingled in equal measure. "You should take it, Dad," she said after a long moment. "It's perfect for you. Teaching others, living on the land, continuing what our family started generations ago." "It would mean moving back to the farm," I said carefully. "Being there every day. Seeing what's changed, what's remained the same. That might be complicated." Claire nodded, understanding my unspoken concern. "Would it be harder for you if I visited? If I became involved with the foundation somehow?" "No," I said, realizing the truth as I spoke it. "Actually, I think I'd like that. If you wanted to, of course." "I would." Her smile was tentative but genuine. "Very much." That weekend, Kate and I drove to the farm, accepting Dr. Jenkins's invitation to tour the renovated foreman's cottage and discuss the position in more detail. The small house had been tastefully updated. New appliances in the kitchen, refinished hardwood floors, a spacious office with built-in bookshelves. "We've added modern amenities while preserving the historical character," Dr. Jenkins explained as we walked through the rooms. "The views are quite spectacular, especially from the back porch." Indeed, the porch overlooked rolling pastures, the pond glinting in the distance. Dairy cows grazed contentedly, just as they had under my care. The familiarity of the scene tugged at my heart. "Could I have a moment?" I asked. "Of course. Take all the time you need. I'll be in the main office when you're ready to talk further." When we were alone, Kate and I stood side by side on the porch, absorbing the pastoral scene before us. "I could be happy here," I said finally. "Teaching, mentoring, being connected to the land again. It suits you," Kate agreed. "I can see it already. You showing eager young farmers how to read the soil, when to plant, how to deliver a calf. But Madison has become home too, I admitted. My apartment, the community garden, the life I've built there. Kate turned to face me, her expression thoughtful. What if it didn't have to be either or? What if there was a both and possibility? What do you mean? I'm eligible for early retirement from the school district this year, she said. I've been considering it already. And while I love my house in Madison, I've always dreamed of more garden space. Hope bloomed in my chest. Kate, are you suggesting that perhaps we could create a future that includes both places? That includes us, together, she smiled. The cottage seems to have plenty of room for two people who've grown accustomed to apartment living. And Madison is only 40 minutes away, close enough to maintain connections there. I took her hands in mine, overwhelmed by the possibility she was offering. Are you sure? It's a significant change. At our age, Sam, we've learned that life offers no certainties, just possibilities we can choose to embrace or reject. Her eyes held mine steadily. I choose to embrace this one. With you, if that's what you want as well. My answer was to draw her close, my kiss conveying what words could not. Gratitude, hope, love, that had grown slowly but surely through seasons of loss and renewal. 2 months later, on a perfect June morning, I stood in the main barn of what had once been Dalton Dairy Farm, facing 20 young people selected for the Foundation's first residential training program. Men and women, ranging in age from 20 to 40, all passionate about sustainable agriculture, all eager to learn. Among them, to my surprise and pleasure, was Diego, Miguel's son, now 14 and determined to become the first in his family to operate his own farm someday. Welcome to the Wisconsin Harvest Foundation's Agricultural Stewardship Program, I began. My name is Sam Dalton. This land has been in my family for 4 generations. While I no longer own it, its lessons run in my blood, and it's my privilege to share those lessons with you. From the back of the barn, Kate watched with pride, her presence a constant reminder of unexpected blessings. Beside her stood Claire, who had volunteered to teach a weekend workshop on marketing for small farms later in the summer. Howard and Martha were there too, along with Gloria and her extended family of community gardeners, all gathered to celebrate this new beginning. Later that evening, after the welcome reception had ended and our guests had departed, Kate and I sat on the porch of the foreman's cottage, our cottage now, watching fireflies rise from the meadow. The familiar sounds of the farm surrounded us, cattle lowing softly in the distance, crickets chirping, the rustle of wind through corn stalks. Happy? Kate asked, her hand finding mine in the gathering twilight. More than I thought possible a year ago, I admitted. When I left this land at dawn that day, I thought I was leaving everything behind. I never imagined I'd find my way back, or that when I did, it would be to something better than what I lost. Inside, our possessions mingled comfortably, my books beside hers on the shelves, our clothes sharing the closet, photographs of our separate pasts displayed alongside images of our shared present, not the life I had planned, but one that fit me better than I could have anticipated. In my journal that night, I wrote, "Today marks 1 year since I heard those words that shattered my world. Dad's too naive. We'll take the farm soon." In the aftermath of betrayal, I made a decision born of pain and pride. I gave away what I thought defined me, my land, my heritage, my future. In doing so, I discovered that none of those things truly defined me after all. I paused, pen hovering over the page, searching for words to capture the journey of the past year. Finally, I continued. What defines us is not what we possess, but what we build. Relationships grounded in trust, communities sustained by mutual care, love that grows even in damaged soil. The farm continues, though it is no longer mine. I continue, though I am not who I was. Claire continues, finding her way back to the values that matter. And in this continuation, this perpetual renewal, lies the greatest truth I've learned. Nothing valuable is ever truly lost if its essence lives on in how we choose to move forward. I closed the journal and joined Kate in the bedroom we now shared. Through the open window, the scent of freshly cut hay drifted in, the eternal perfume of rural summer nights. Different circumstances, different relationship, different purpose for being here. But the land remained, and I remained, both of us transformed yet recognizable, both serving a purpose larger than ourselves. And in that alignment of past and present, loss and discovery, ending and beginning, I found a peace I had never expected to know again. Not despite what had happened, but because of it. Not by holding on, but by letting go. Not by seeking revenge, but by creating something better than what was taken. The most profound lesson of all. Sometimes what looks like the end is merely the soil from which new life grows.